Call of Duty fans, welcome back to Checkmate Gaming. I hold shift with you to break down all of the action from the Call of Duty League Chicago Huntsmen Home Series. Day number 2, of course, came and gone to see everybody qualify or not qualify to kind of round out what our playoff bracket will look like to finish things off in day number 3. So let's recap through all 6 matches. A lot to go over. I'll try to be as concise as possible while giving you the big storylines as we get in. We'll start things off in Group A with the winners qualifier. Atlanta FaZe will be playing up against the New York Subliners, and after the performance that the New York Subliners put up against Chicago, you thought maybe anything was possible, especially considering that Atlanta, yeah, they found a 3-0 against London, but it was a tight 3-0. This series would start off on Ramaza, and to be fair, this is one of Atlanta's weakest hard points, but still, Atlanta's incredible at hard points, so would there be much drama? Yeah, there would be, because New York was looking like they're absolutely for real, having an absolute great time when it came to rotation calls, finding a way to, again, allow Mac to essentially be the go-to objective player, which freed up so much space for Attach, Zuma, and Temp to kind of rotate around the map as much as they would have felt like. Accuracy holding things down, all went well, 250, 177 for New York to draw first blood. But here's the deal, Atlanta, let's be honest, they're incredible at search and destroy. Would New York be able to put up much of a fight? They would. Look, again, New York, this team is absolutely for real, guys. They played Atlanta super close, and again, this map was ATL's bread and butter. It was close all the way through, but it wouldn't be enough for New York to finally be able to take down the Arklov peak away from Atlanta, so they would stay with a 6-4 win, tie things up 1-1. Now, as typically has been the case with teams that are making changes in their roster, there is cause for concern in their domination. New York would need to find a way to be better in domination, I think, if they want to definitively put themselves up with the high caliber teams. Yeah, they played a close one versus Chicago, but this Atlanta team's a totally different squad. And domination, again, feeling like that barometric test that a lot of teams kind of use as who is good, who is maybe not there yet. Atlanta was pretty much all the way over what New York was able to offer here on Hackney Yard. 180-141 the score. So map number 4, Atlanta, could they close it out here? I don't even know if Atlanta showed up to this St. Petro hardpoint. This was the one map that Atlanta has stomped on teams, and they got 100 point clubbed? 250-84, the first time we've seen Atlanta lose both hardpoints since they played Minnesota in LA. So then we go to map number 5. Could New York do it? Could they upset the Atlanta FaZe? Nope. 6-1, St. Petro, not close, but damn if New York didn't put up one hell of an inspiring performance. They would drop to the losers finals with a second chance to qualify versus the winner of Chicago and London. And after London put up a good fight versus Atlanta, you thought, could they do it versus Chicago? This was a pretty tight series. At least in the beginning, Chicago would start off with a 100-0. It was like 98-0, but we'll round it up to 100-0 on St. Petro. But London would bounce back. They had a solid P3. They did a couple of solid breaks for P4, and they got right back in the mix. It's actually forcing Chicago to clutch up in the end for the third rotation, which Envoy and RCDs, they popped off. They would clean things up. 250-243. Chicago survived. Gunrunner, search and destroy. Chicago, too strong for London here, 6-1. St. Petro, domination. Other side of the coin. London was way over to the top of what Chicago was able to do. Better rotations, better outslaying. 195-102. London right back in the mix. We go to Azir Cave. You thought this would be where Wuskin would definitely showcase and start to get his team in the mix. But it was Shawnee who looked solid all the way through. Wuskin was not really there for the AR-centric map, but they really needed him. Chicago started to streak late and got the last second tick on the 250 before there would be a rotation of hills where London was setting up for. So 250-235, Chicago escaped from that map 4 and into the loser final qualifier, where they would get a rematch versus New York. And we'd really get a look here. Is this New York team actually going to be renamed as the Dubliners? Because if they find a way to beat Chicago twice in one weekend, it would be insane. And again, Mac existing all over the objective, solid all the way through, allowing him to go even or positive, has, again, freed up so much space for this New York team to run around the map. They would be looking, again, very solid in their hard point this weekend. 250-195, they were able to take down Chicago in the Gunrunner hard point. Search and destroy. This has been one of the kind of tougher points for the New York Subliners. They were able to beat Chicago in both searches last time through. Could they do it again in Arklov Peak? It would start tight, 3-3, but then Chicago hit it into overgear and they found the 6-3 win, sending us to map number 3, domination, Hackney Yard. And again, this is the barometric test for me when it comes to how good is a team right now. Can they work everything that goes on domination, whether it's rotations, when to play the map, taking away the map, responding to wonky spawns? Chicago would actually have their backs put up against the wall by New York late into the second half, but once again, clutch factor comes through. Chicago able to find a nice full swing of the map on Hackney Yard, 158-156 in a tight one. We then go to St. Petra, where again, New York has been looking good in the hard point specifically. They just put Atlanta FaZe in the 100-point club on this map. Could they do it again? No, Chicago would not let things get too interesting, as if they were watching the Atlanta game, saying if we play St. Petra, this is what we have to do. Huge win for the 3-1, 250-167. So coming out of Group A, you'll have Atlanta from the winner's side, Chicago from the loser's side. But what an incredible performance all the way through for New York. Big credit has to be given to them. And even though London lost the 2, they still played a good weekend as well. So let's jump over to Group B. We'll start this pool off again talking about the winners qualifier, Seattle versus Dallas. And after Seattle found a convincing win versus the LA Guerrillas, would they be able to battle up against the Dallas Empire? Sure, why not? Azir K first up, Octane 40 kills, that'll do it. Dallas's ARs on an AR map, not really showcasing what they needed. 250-228 Seattle for first blood. But from then on out, it was pretty much all Dallas all the way through. Seattle looked decent yesterday on Arklov Peak. Would they find the success in the search and destroy against Dallas, though? Answer would be no. 6-3 there. Gunrunner for the domination. This has been Seattle's best map, without a doubt. They looked great here yesterday, whereas Dallas is actually 0-3 on Gunrunner domination. Tight game, honestly, until Dallas got the final 30 seconds of the first half into a full dom. That would streak them. And then again in the second half, Dallas would go down, would take a small triple cap, and that would lead to the win, 157-149. Hackney Yard hardpoint. Seattle would be down after the first rotation, but they did get a P1 and early spawn flip for P2, which the second time around, the P2 hardpoint was back and forth. It traded hands 3 different times. I've never seen a P2 more heavily contested or broken than I did in this one particularly. But Seattle not able to fully get everything done. 250-198. Dallas make it into the playoffs from the winner's side. 3-1. Going down to the losers bracket, Optic Gaming versus LA, a rematch from Los Angeles, where Optic Gaming kind of took their first step towards some semblance of success in this Call of Duty League season. We'd start off on Gunrunner for the hard point. LAG take a first blood in a close one, though. Definitely showcasing that, hey, maybe yesterday was a little bit of a fluke in their series versus Seattle. Maybe could have been 250-227. LAG up early, and then in the second map, Search and Destroy, Ramaza, Guerrillas look solid, 6-1. Okay. But I will say, again, in Los Angeles Guerrillas, it's going to feel like you have to take at least the first map, if not the first 2, if you want to have a chance in the series, simply due to the fact that their domination has not been good. And yeah, it needs some work. 172-148 Optic Gaming and the Gunrunner Dom. Then we go to Hackney Yard Hardpoint, where, all right, LAG showing signs of life all the way through the first rotation. And with that, they would take a convincing win, 250-164. And getting both hardpoint wins versus what looked to be a very solid Optic Gaming LA team is, again, relatively inspiring. And it's showing that, hey, maybe we overestimated Optic Gaming LA, that they have a lot more work that needs to be done before their major competitors as they exit this one with 2 losses. So for the 4th time, Seattle will play Los Angeles Guerrillas, 2nd time in the weekend. And this would be, again, not really what you wanted from LAG early, as they would get completely rolled through in the Ramaza hardpoint, 250-103. Apathy really having a magical weekend, the best weekend I've seen him have in a long time. Pander also ended up on the Ramaza hardpoint, a 34-20 total. Big game there, 250-103 for Seattle. Search and Destroy. Can Seattle be more consistent in search? Again, like we mentioned in our prediction stream and throughout yesterday, if they can win search and destroys, this team could be a top 6 team overnight. Or what feels like overnight, right? 6-4, Seattle take the Gunrunner versus LAG. Okay, so now all of a sudden backs are up against the wall for LAG, who've been bad in domination. I was sitting there saying that this third map should be a 3-0 for Seattle. It was going to be played on St. Petra, but what's this? LAG find an early flip for the C flag, a couple moments of triple cap in the mix, and then the second half, they wouldn't let off the throat of the Seattle Surge. 170-133, LAG looking very different all of a sudden in domination, and maybe you thought there was some life for them to potentially set up a reverse sweep versus Seattle. Would not happen. A close St. Petro hardpoint all the way through, but a couple of clean wipes near the end of the second rotation, P5, gave Seattle a lead, and only needing a few seconds going into the third rotation's first hill, it would get them the win 250 to 223. So again, taking a look at what our playoffs will look like for tomorrow, Atlanta FaZe versus the Seattle Surge, and the Dallas Empire going up against the Chicago Huntsmen. So what is there to say here quickly before we sign off for the day? Well, I'll tell you this much. It's going to be a tough battle for Seattle. They're going up against an Atlanta FaZe team that's going to be reeling after seeing 2 hardpoint losses, and you feel like if Seattle's going to have a chance to beat Atlanta, they need to win 2 of the 3 respawns. They would need to see at least a search and destroy going their way. I don't see them winning 3 respawns, and I don't see them winning both search and destroys. So you do the math. The probability is favoring that of Atlanta. I've got Atlanta taking this one, depending on who picks first. Probably a 3-1. Seattle has looked good in respawn. I think there's some vacancies and some opportunities for Seattle to steal a map away from Atlanta, but I just don't see them beating Atlanta in search and destroy, and I can't see them winning all 3 respawns versus this Atlanta FaZe team. So I got it going 3-1 for Atlanta. Should be pretty easy for the FaZe boys, you'd feel. Going into the Dallas versus Chicago game, though, this one's going to be interesting because Chicago has not looked great, if we're being completely candid. They've not looked great. And going into a Dallas team that has looked relatively good throughout, again, they're 3-1 on hardpoint so far. They're flawless throughout the domination, although both of them were close. When they've played up against Chicago before, their biggest struggles were in hardpoint. Dallas has not taken a hardpoint off of Chicago yet. But for Chicago, their hardpoint lately has not been what we would expect it. And beyond that, their search and destroy has been worse. And with that as well, we also have a split decision on what their dominations have been so far. Being beat up by London today leaves some cause for concern. And going forward to this Dallas team, I've got a little bit of an edge just on the maps alone, favoring Dallas. If they're smart about their vetoes, I think Dallas can take this. I figured that we're going to not see a Zero Cave. Dallas has not been good there. Chicago has. I imagine we'll not see Hackney Yard because Chicago is bad there. Dallas is great there. So that leaves the potential of a Gunrunner, a Ramaza, or a St. Petro. All 3 of those maps have been relatively consistent for both of our teams. Going to search and destroy. Gunrunner has been the best for Dallas. It's been okay for Chicago. Wouldn't be surprised to see it. Kind of the same storyline as well for Arklov Peak. That could go back and forth. But for me, it comes down to the domination. Both teams prefer to play on Hackney Yard. We saw Chicago get smoked on St. Petro. We're likely not going to see that. And depending on who gets to choose what the map is, if it's a Hackney Yard, I like Dallas's chances there. So for me, it comes down to that map 3. And I've got Dallas beating Chicago. So once again, we will likely, I think, avoid seeing Chicago and Atlanta for what feels like the 15th time here. I've got Atlanta and Dallas in the finals. And at the end of it, I think Atlanta's just the better team. I've got Atlanta taking this series. Even if they play up against Chicago, I think Atlanta's still the best team in the mix right now. So that's where my predictions are. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about who looked good, maybe who looked bad, and how I might be a little bit short-sighted on some of these predictions and takes for you guys. And make sure, again, you hit the subscribe button on your way out. Come back next time as we'll be dealing with the full recap, and we'll be digging straight into power rankings pretty soon after that as well for you guys to give you the full update. Again, hope you guys enjoyed, and until the next time we see each other, hope you keep bowling down. So long.